He had 18 years on the force. Tonight, he's just a dad, Perno, about to be shaken down by his own badge.
$40. That's all it took for a crooked cop to think he owned this man.
What that cop didn't know Danny, by Monday, this single dad would outrank him. The room went silent. The crooked cop finally recognized the man he'd robbed on Route 9.
He didn't want revenge. He wanted the badge to finally mean something again.
Marcus Reed gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned pale, watching the red and blue lights flash in his rearview mirror for the second time that month. If you've ever felt like the world was testing you right when you thought you finally caught a break, stay with me until the end of this story. And if stories about quiet men who refuse to break hit something in you, hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happens to Marcus in the next 40 minutes will stay with you long after the video ends. Marcus was 38 years old, a single father raising his 9-year-old daughter, Zoe, alone since his wife, Elena, passed away 3 years earlier after a long battle with illness. He worked 2 jobs, days as a security supervisor at a warehouse, nights doing dispatch work for a private security firm, just to keep the lights on and Zoe in her school uniform. He hadn't slept more than 5 hours a night in longer than he could remember. But 2 weeks ago, something changed. After 18 years of law enforcement experience, 4 of them as a decorated detective in a neighboring county, 3 rounds of interviews, and a background check so thorough it dug up parking tickets from his college years, Marcus was offered the position of chief of police for the small town of Fairview. He hadn't told anyone yet, not his co-workers, not his sister, not even Zoe. He wanted to surprise her. He wanted for once to walk into a room and watch his daughter's face light up with pride instead of worry. That evening, Marcus was driving Zoe home from her piano lesson in his old gray sedan, the one with the cracked side mirror he kept meaning to fix. The radio was playing softly, Zoe humming along off-key when the lights flared behind him. He signaled, pulled over onto the shoulder of Route 9, and rolled down his window with the calm patience of a man who had done this exact motion 1,000 times from the other side of the badge. The officer who approached was heavy-set, sunglasses on despite the fading evening light, one hand resting lazily on his belt. His name tag read D. Doyle. License and registration, Doyle said. Not as a request, but as a command laced with boredom and something meaner underneath. Marcus handed them over without a word. Doyle studied the license far longer than necessary, then leaned down toward the window, glancing past Marcus at Zoe in the back seat, her small hands still clutching her piano folder. "Taillights out," Doyle said. It wasn't. Marcus had checked both taillights that very morning before his shift. The way he checked everything twice, a habit from years of making sure young officers under his command never got caught slipping on the basics. But he said nothing. He'd learned long ago that arguing with a man wearing a badge and an attitude rarely ended well, especially with his daughter watching. "I could write you up for it," Doyle continued, tapping the roof of the car, "but that's a lot of paperwork for both of us. Tell you what, we can sort this out right here, save you the trip to court, save me the trouble." He let the sentence hang in the air, heavy with implication. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He'd seen this before, years ago, early in his career, when a training officer warned him that some cops used the uniform like a toll booth. He never imagined he'd be on the receiving end of it, and certainly not with his daughter 3 feet away. "How much are we talking?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice even, though his jaw was clenched tight enough to ache. 40 ought to do it," Doyle said, smiling now, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Marcus looked at Zoe in the mirror. She was watching, confused, her piano folder now pressed against her chest like a shield. He didn't have $40 to spare that week, not after the electric bill, Not after Zoe's shoes that were a size too small and needed replacing. But he reached for his wallet anyway, because the fastest way out of this moment, the way that protected his daughter from watching her father get dragged out of the car in front of her, was to simply pay it. He handed over 2 crumpled 20s. Doyle took them without ceremony, folded them into his shirt pocket, and tapped the roof twice. "Drive safe now," he said, already walking back to his cruiser. Whistling something TUNELESS. Marcus sat there for a long moment before pulling back onto the road, his hands trembling slightly on the wheel, not from fear, but from a controlled, simmering fury he hadn't let himself feel in years. Zoe finally spoke from the back seat. "Daddy, why did you give him money? Did you do something wrong?" Marcus met her eyes in the mirror and forced a small, reassuring smile. "No, baby. Sometimes grown-ups do the wrong thing, even when they're supposed to know better. But I promise you, things are going to be different soon." Zoe didn't fully understand, but she nodded, trusting him the way children trust their parents, even when the world doesn't make sense. That night, after Zoe fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with the acceptance letter from the Fairview Police Commission spread out in front of him. Chief of Police. Effective Monday. He thought about Doyle's smug, tuneless whistle, about the $40 that could have bought Zoe's new shoes, about every parent and every ordinary citizen this man had likely squeezed the exact same way, banking on their fear, their exhaustion, their desire to just get home safely to their kids. Marcus had built his entire career on the belief that the badge was supposed to mean something. Protection, not extortion. He decided right then that Monday would not just be his first day. It would be a reckoning, quiet but absolute. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. Marcus dressed in his new uniform for the first time, the fabric still stiff, the chief's insignia gleaming under the bathroom light. He drove Zoe to school first, watching her skip through the gates with her piano folder and her new shoes. He'd found a way to make it work, the way he always did. Then he drove to the Fairview Police Department, parked in the spot marked CHIEF, and walked in through the front doors to a bullpen full of officers who had no idea what was coming. Deputy Frank Doyle was leaning against the coffee station, recounting some story to a rookie, laughing at his own joke when the room went quiet. He turned, still chuckling, to see who had walked in, and the laughter died in his throat. The man standing in the doorway in a crisp chief's uniform was the same man he had shaken down on Route 9 4 days earlier. The same tired eyes, the same jaw. Marcus held his gaze for a long silent moment, letting the recognition fully land, letting Doyle's face drain of color as the pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "Good morning," Marcus said finally, his voice calm and carrying easily across the bullpen. "My name is Chief Marcus Reed. I'll be leading this department starting today." He let his eyes stay on Doyle just a beat longer than necessary. "I believe some of you may already know me, though maybe not in this uniform." A few officers exchanged confused glances. Doyle said nothing, his mouth opening and closing without sound. $40 stolen suddenly feeling like the heaviest weight he'd ever carried. Marcus didn't humiliate him in front of the department that morning. That wasn't who he was, and it wasn't the example he wanted to set on day one. Instead, he called Doyle into his office that afternoon, closed the door, and laid out exactly what had happened on Route 9, calmly, factually, without raising his voice once. He explained that this wasn't about revenge, because revenge built nothing. It was about the fact that the badge Doyle wore was supposed to protect people like the version of himself sitting in that car with his daughter, not extract fear money from them. Doyle, to his shock, wasn't fired outright. Marcus gave him a choice: resign quietly or face a full internal investigation that would almost certainly uncover this wasn't an isolated incident, because men like Doyle rarely stopped at one victim. Doyle chose to resign. Later, 3 other residents came forward once word spread that the department had new leadership willing to listen, confirming what Marcus had already suspected. Doyle's badge was revoked permanently, and the case was referred to the state licensing board. In the months that followed, Chief Marcus Reed rebuilt trust in Fairview one small decision at a time. Mandatory dash cameras reviewed weekly, an anonymous tip line for complaints against officers, monthly town halls where residents could speak directly to him without fear. He made a point of coaching every young officer personally on what the badge was supposed to mean, using his own story, without naming names, as the lesson that opened every training session. Zoe grew prouder of her father with each passing month, especially the day her class took a field trip to the police station and her teacher pointed to the man at the front of the room and said, "Class, this is Chief Reed." And Zoe, beaming, whispered to her friend, "That's my dad." Marcus never forgot the $40, not because of the money, but because of what it represented. The moment he decided that power, once finally in his hands, would be used to lift people up rather than push them down. He kept the memory not as bitterness, but as a compass, a daily reminder of every ordinary person, every tired single parent, every scared kid in a back seat, who deserved better than fear from the very people sworn to protect them. And in Fairview, slowly but surely they finally got it.